Ghana, reflecting on how we've been begging. We have begged since independence, even before independence. We are begging, and if the foundation we have laid remains the same, if we keep building the same way, experts say we will continue to beg. But reflecting on how far we've come, our IMF flirtations, among others, what is your brief understanding of our economic situation and why we keep going back to the Bretton Woods institutions? That's the question I'll run by all of you for starters. In about a minute or two maximum, I would like your quick reflection on that before we get into other salient matters. I'll start with Professor Ackah on that beat.
Okay, good morning. Am I to start? Yes. So thank you very much, and good morning to all the panelists and your cherished listeners. So I think Ghana's situation is, purely the way I look at it, is not being able to put a handle on macroeconomic management and debt management strategy that is conducive for our development aspirations. Most of our years since independence we've been dependent on foreign aid. We have refused or unable to raise domestic capital to develop, and that has still been our problem after 65 years of independence. So when a country refuses to raise adequate domestic revenue, especially through taxation, but also through other fines and non-tax revenue, then the only way you can break the resource constraint is to depend on external capital. External capital comes normally from about 3 or 4 different sources. The most important one and most sustainable one is through export revenue. And again, the structure of our export and our trade has not been very sustainable, i.e. we have depended on 2 or 3 primary commodities for all these years. That does not give us adequate foreign exchange earnings in a sustainable way to develop. And the other source is through foreign direct investment. We have not built a competitive economy that is attractive to sustainable foreign capital. So the ones that we get are the greedy type, the hot money type that comes in mainly to our resource sector, oil, gold mining, and we have not even had proper capital control measures to make them sustainable and developmental. So they just come in and we don't get maximum benefit from it. And whenever there are crises, there's capital flight, they repatriate most of their capital or their profit. So that's another area which we have not managed, I think, prudentially. The third source is through remittances. And again, that's also not sustainable. There are not too many Ghanaians that remit a lot of money, even though it's been growing over time. But we don't have much from remittances in a sustainable way that will help us to industrialize and to develop our economy. So then we are left with the last...
Did I hear you say we didn't have much from remittances? Because as we have heard, even in the COVID era and even before that, we get quite a chunk of money from remittances. Is it just that you're saying it doesn't suffice on the developmental scale? Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean. On the developmental scale, the needs of the country is much. If you look at the road situation, the infrastructure situation in Ghana, remittances will not solve even 5% of it. If you want to construct railroads from Takoradi to Kumasi to Tamale airports, good hospitals and good schools, and fund proper research and industrialize agriculture, remittances that we are getting in Ghana is good, but is normally procyclical. It normally increases when we have crisis. families are sending to their relatives. So it's not tourism has not really been developed in a way that attracts huge sums of remittances. Other countries like the Philippines and some other countries have been serious about that. I don't think we are getting so much from that area. So basically, we have now resorted to borrowing, which is the fourth channel, which is international or external borrowing. And therefore, now that we say we are a middle-income country, lower middle-income country, you will see that the aid has dropped, and then we need to borrow. In the past, we used to borrow from the multilateral sources and the Paris Club, bilateral, government to government. But in recent past, we've gone much to private capital market, private credit, and that is, for me, the most dangerous part of our borrowing or debt management strategy. And we are borrowing at high interest rate, even though they are lower than the domestic rate. But because of the exchange rate problem, when you borrow dollars at a rate of about 10%, then you need to make sure that your return to investment or that you use the funds for should exceed 10%. So, and most of the time, when we borrow this foreign currency, we use it to support the budget or to refinance existing debt. We are not really investing it in a way that will get the return in any way around even 2%. When I last checked, since the 80s, most of our borrowings gives us a return between 0.8 to 1.4%. Okay, so, and we have to pay interest of around 9, 8, 10%. So basically you have a debt problem. The returns you get from the foreign loans you have taken, you are not investing it in a sustainable, productive way that gives you more profit or more returns to be able to pay your interest or even to service your interest. That is a big challenge. And that is, for me, how I analyze our problem. It is a non-efficient way, non-prudent way of managing our debt crisis. But when we look at debt sustainability, it's just dividing the total debt stock over GDP. So at the current now, we say our debt to GDP is over 100%, around that. That means that one of the sustainable ways of having a sustainable debt profile is to grow the economy. So if the economy, for example, grows sustainably at 8, 9, 7% for a decade, you will see that the debt to GDP ratio all of a sudden falls. In fact, if we grow 2023, 2024 at about 7, 8%, debt to GDP will just reduce significantly. Our GDP is almost 800 billion. So if it grows at 10%, you add another 80 billion. Okay, so that's how it is. But over time, since independence, our GDP growth has averaged just around 4%. So we are not growing seriously. We are not investing in growth sectors. And our borrowing has exceeded our growth. So again, another sustainable way is to make sure that the economy grows faster than the rate of borrowing. Anytime the rate of borrowing exceeds your rate of growth, we're going to have a crisis. So we are borrowing faster than we are growing the economy. You also have to make sure that the growth of your export is greater than the growth of your borrowing. We are borrowing faster than we are growing our export. So then it means that already, ab initio, you are going to have a debt crisis. When you borrow faster than your growth, GDP growth, you borrow faster than your export growth, and you are also borrowing and you're paying higher interest rate than your return to investment.
Okay.